Welcome to The Bottom Line. I'm Pastor Rick Utze from Maranatha Community Fellowship in Plain City, Ohio. You know, I saw on the news the other day that from the volcanoes and the lava in Hawaii, all that activity that's going on and all the flow of the lava and what it's eating up. One of the things I found fascinating was this story of how the lava actually went and covered a lake and boiled all the water out of it in less than 2 hours. This lake was over 200 feet deep, and the heat from that lava and the lava itself, as it entered that lake, just you see the steam rising up, and in less than 2 hours there was no more water in the lake. I mean, and it wasn't just this little puddle, it was a deep lake. I think it was probably the largest lake on that island, and it's just amazing at what nature can do. It's just amazing at how fast water can be dried up. It's amazing how the immense heat from that lava can just cause that kind of devastation. And it reminds me of what the Bible says about heat or trials in the Bible. Because the issue isn't whether we're going to face heat or trials. The issue is, how do we respond to them? And in the Old Testament, when the prophets were speaking to Israel, because Israel was taken to the promised land, they were given good things, and then they turned their back on God. And Jeremiah tells them, in Jeremiah, the 2nd chapter, it goes through and talks about how they've abandoned God. They've exchanged the glory of God to run after other idols, to run after the idols of the countries around them. And they forgot what God had done. They forgot who He was. They forgot that He was the fountain of living water. It says in Jeremiah 2:13, "For the people have committed a double evil. They have abandoned me, the fountain of living water, and dug cisterns for themselves, cracked cisterns that cannot hold water." It was very important back in those times, because of the lack of water in the summer, that they had places where they could gather water, and they were cisterns. And it would hold the water so that they could use that water. But some of the cisterns were broken and they couldn't hold water. And it says that that is what it was like for people who abandoned God. He is a fountain of living water. He's a spring that doesn't run dry. And they forgot Him. They abandoned Him. And they went after other idols, the images that were made with man's hands. Man created these images and tried to form them, and then they would worship them. And God's saying, what sense does that make? I'm the creator who created you in my image. I have all power, and I want to be with you, and I was with you, and I am still with you, even in hard times. And Jesus even used the illustration of living water when He was talking to the woman at the well in John 4. It says, Jesus answered it, "If you knew the gift of God and who was saying to you, 'Give me a drink,' you would ask Him, and He would give you living water." So Jesus was with this well, and He was asking the woman for water, and He says, if you knew who I was, you would ask me to give you a drink, and I would give you living water that would satisfy your soul and the deep longings of your heart. Because Jesus went right to the issue then and said, hey, why don't you go bring me, your husband? And she's like, I don't have one. And He said, you're right, you have had 5, and the one you're living with now isn't your husband. She was seeking satisfaction in all the wrong things. She was seeking it in the love of other men, other people that could not satisfy it. It doesn't mean that our relationships shouldn't be fulfilling. It just means we're all sinful. And God is saying, when the heat comes into your life, when that lava starts flowing, and it seems like it's drying things up, you need a source of living water that isn't going to run dry. You may think that your idols that you have created in your own heart, that you've set above me, that the things of this world, the pleasures, the power, whatever you treasure in your heart is going to satisfy. And it may look deep. It may look like it's very deep. But just like, and here's the bottom line, just like that heat enveloped that lake and dried it up, that can happen to our own lives when we abandon God and go after the broken cisterns that we think are going to satisfy. They won't. Don't be deceived into believing that those things will satisfy what God has put in us. God has put desires in us, and we're to desire Him, and that's where true satisfaction comes from. That's where the eternal living waters come from. That is the life that's going to last way beyond this life. And we can be sure that even in the heat, even in all of that, if we have God and trust Him and run to Him instead of running and trying to escape into the things of this world that we think can give us some temporary satisfaction, He says, if you just come to me, I will never leave you or forsake you. And I have a great plan for your life, for your future with me. So let's not do as the Israelites did and run after the broken cisterns, but let's instead turn to our wonderful, glorious God who promises to always be with us, and we can indeed have, even in this life, peace and satisfaction, joy that goes beyond any human understanding, because Jesus, the God-man, is here with us to provide us the strength to go on, and He knows what's best for our lives so that we can become more like Him. And so thank you for watching, and I'll see you next time on The Bottom Line.